Hi everyone, it's Ashley, and today I'm going to be showing you how I created this card using the partial die cutting technique. This video does go along with my blog post over on Craft and Desert Divas blog, and it's linked in the description, so please go check that out. I'm going to be using Craft and Desert Divas sending word die. I'm going to be using both the shadow die and the actual word die, which come together when you purchase the set. The shadow die will be the actual die that I end up partially die cutting. I'm going to be using also their floral wreath set and their sending sentiment set. And this set goes really well with both the sending and wishing dies. I'm going to be making a 4-bar sized card today, which is an A1 size card. It is 3.5 by 4 7/8. So I am taking a card front in that size, 3.5 by 4 7/8, and I am taping down the shadow portion of the die right on top of that, making sure that whatever is hanging over is going to be the actual part that is being cut. Now you'll notice when I set this up right to line up on the bottom, it is exactly half of that full piece of paper I have, which is 7 by 4 7/8. And this is so you get that little peak at the top, like a little tap that you saw in the beginning. For my Cuttlebug, I put the A plate, the B plate, which is my cut plate, and I sandwich the die and cardstock right in between the B and C plate, making sure to only place the part that I want actually cut between the plates. I take a minute to make sure that this is perfect because this is exactly what I want to happen, just the top peeking up. I use a scoring board and I score it right at the 4-bar space. Making sure to not go totally through, I do it on either side of the shadow die. And when you fold it over, this is what you'll see. It's a perfect spot to put the sending word die, which is what we're going to cut out now. If you don't like that little hole peeking through, you can always trim a piece of cardstock to fit perfectly in there and either use double-sided tape or glue, and you won't see it at all. And as I said, we're going to cut out the sending word die now, just with some white cardstock, and I'm sorry about that shaking. After I carefully remove the die from the cardstock, I will take my EK Tools tweezers and just poke where the holes are available to make sure that that word comes out clean and no spaces are cut or torn apart. I'll now just pop out the middles of all of the looped letters like the S, the E, the D, and the G. And this is just a little preview of what it's going to look like, just like you saw in the beginning. Now I'm going to be using my Misty here. I have a mini Misty, and I'm going to use the floral wreath set. Instead of stamping the actual heart wreath this time, what I'm going to do in a minute is place it in the middle so that I know where it goes. And just for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you how to detail your colored penciled colorings. So I go ahead and line up all of the single flowers and leaves that I like to use on the outside of the wreath, and I just make sure that they are where I want them to be. I remove the floral die, or I'm sorry, the floral wreath stamp, and I press down my Misty so that all of the stamps will stick to the very top. I'm going to be using VersaFine ink, and that's just because I think it gives a little bit better detail. And I will push it down and make sure that all of those stamped very nicely. And we're going to leave those stamps there. Don't take them off just yet because we'll need them later. I put that off to the side and I start to draw or color in with my colored pencils. I wanted the entire floral theme to be very light, so I ended up using a very pale peachy pink here with a very sort of bright magenta. I used a white Prismacolor pencil to blend that all out just to give a little bit of a faded look. And I then use a darker and lighter green, also in Prismacolor, to create the shading and highlights on the leaves. Now, as you can see, the flowers look very cloudy. They look a little bit, they're not as detailed as we would like them to look. They look a little bit like a 2-year-old did it. So this is where the Misty comes in play, and it's going to be beautiful at the end. Just wait and see. So since we have all of the stamps exactly where we stamped them before, I'm just going to place my card, again, right in the Misty, and ink these up again with VersaFine ink. And once we press that down and apply a little bit of pressure just to make sure that we get a nice even stamp on all of the flowers, you'll see once we get a close-up that the detail is back. We don't need to go over it with any type of marker or pen. It looks almost like it was stamped on there with color. I'm now going to complete my sentiment with the word love from the Sending Sentiments set. I prep the bottom right of the cardstock, which is where I'm going to be stamping the word love, and I use a Versamark ink to stamp it. I put a scrap piece of paper under it to catch the embossing powder so that I can easily transfer it back into my embossing powder jar. There's a little bit of residue because the VersaFine ink is so recently stamped, so I just take a very small brush or paintbrush and wipe away all of the excess embossing powder on in the area of the stamp. I take my heat tool and set that. And now is the time to stamp my heart floral wreath. As you'll notice in the beginning, I do have floral stamps or flower stamps around on the top and the bottom of the floral wreath, but it's important that I stamp the wreath first to make sure that I have room for the specific stamps that I want to put above and below. I also stamped this in VersaFine ink as I'm going to be coloring it in the same fashion. Again, do not remove the stamp from the Misty because we'll be doing the same exact thing. Now, to save time, I've decided to move ahead and do my sending die cut first. So I put some multi-medium matte on the back of the sending die or word die, and I adhere this right to the top where it belongs. This is before extra stamping and coloring, and here it is finally and finished. And again, I used the same technique that I did before where I colored and then stamped it again right back on top. I hope that you have enjoyed learning about how to do this partial die cutting technique. This will also work with a number of dies. So if you give it a try, please let me know and let me know how it turned out for you. I'll see you soon. Bye.